who's actually going to get the most out of a sewing and embroidery combo like the Brother SE2000, and who's better off putting their money into a dedicated machine or maybe just a simpler stitching tool? If you're sitting on the fence because you've seen a lot of hype about all-in-one craft gear, you're not alone. There's a genuine risk of buying a machine that either sits half-used or ends up feeling like a compromise. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. In this video I'm going to walk through the day-to-day experience of actually using the SE2000, point out the real-world strengths that make it a solid investment for some hobbyists, and flag the practical trade-offs that will leave others feeling shortchanged. Let's start with the first thing most beginners notice: the way the SE2000 folds into your workflow. I set it up on a modest home office table, plugged it into a standard Wi-Fi network and paired it with the Artspira mobile app on my phone. The app isn't just a fancy way to select a design, it actually lets you edit stitch density, resize patterns, and preview the final output with a live overlay. That means you can design a monogram for a pillow, tweak it on your phone, and send it straight to the machine without ever touching the control panel. For a crafter who already spends a lot of time on a tablet, that wireless workflow feels seamless. The ability to run both sewing and embroidery in the same machine also eliminates the need to shuffle between two separate units when you're making a quilt that needs both decorative stitching and functional seams. A typical weekend project I tried was a set of 3 tote bags. I started with a plain canvas tote, did a straight stitch seam for the handles, then swapped to embroidery mode to put a small logo on the front. The 5x7-inch embroidery field meant I could fit the logo without having to reposition the fabric multiple times, something that can be a real time saver when you're producing several items. The stock of 6 spools of premium thread and 10 pre-wound bobbins kept the project moving without the usual interruptions for thread changes. Because the machine feeds the bobbins automatically, I never had to manually load each one. The sensor tells you when a bobbin is low, which is a small but welcome convenience when you're juggling a dozen stitches. Now, let's talk about the strongest reasons to actually buy this unit. First, the dual-function nature of the SE2000 is a cost-effective shortcut for anyone who wants to do both sewing and embroidery without buying 2 separate machines. The included accessories, extra needles and bobbins, add real value right out of the box. You're not forced to buy extra supplies the moment you turn it on. Second, the Wi-Fi connectivity paired with the Artspira app opens up a library of free and paid designs that you can download directly to the machine. For makers who love to experiment with new patterns each month, that connectivity is a genuine time saver versus manually transferring files via USB. Finally, the learning curve is kinder than you might expect. The user interface guides you through threading, tension adjustment, and even needle selection, so the first few projects feel more like guided tutorials than a trial-and-error slog. But there are also clear, practical reasons to skip this machine. If you're strictly a quilting enthusiast who only needs straight and zigzag stitches, the embroidery features become dead weight you'll never tap into, and the larger footprint could crowd a cramped sewing space. The 5x7-inch field, while generous for most logos, still limits you if you ever want to do larger motifs. Think of a full-size floral design that would require you to stitch in sections and realign the fabric, a process that can be frustrating for beginners. Also, the reliance on Wi-Fi means you'll need a fairly stable home network. In a house where the router is far from the sewing area, you may experience occasional lag when sending designs. For those who prefer a fully offline experience, that dependency can feel like an unnecessary hurdle. Another subtle downside appears when you try to run very dense embroidery on thicker fabrics like denim or leather. The SE2000's needle bar is built for standard medium weight materials. Heavy fabrics often cause the machine to pause or skip stitches, and you'll end up having to manually lower the tension or thin the design. If your primary goal is to work with heavy-duty leather belts or upholstery, you might be better off with a dedicated heavy-duty embroidery machine that can handle higher needle pressures without stalling. In terms of daily usability, the machine feels solid on the table and the LCD screen is easy to read even under bright kitchen lighting. The threaded path, though a bit more involved than on a basic sewing machine, remains intuitive thanks to the step-by-step prompts on the screen. Over the course of a week, I ran through about a dozen different projects ranging from simple repairs on clothing to customizing a set of kitchen towels with embroidered initials. The only moment where the workflow slowed down was when I